So we are going to start precisely with the latest PHP versions, starting precisely by PHP 7.0, that's .17, which has a bunch of bugs being fixed. Nothing really unusual, except maybe for this one. This bug here that mentions incomplete post does not time out, but is passed to PHP. This means that before this bug was fixed, PHP was not handling, for instance, when maybe the request was aborted, but the server did not realize that probably the user canceled the request, or there was a disconnection in the user network, probably during an upload, because this is for the post requests. And even after an eventual timeout period, PHP was getting the request as if the request actually completed. So this may be an interesting thing that was handled. I guess there's nothing for you to change in your code. This is just
now you need to anticipate incomplete post requests. Like, I don't know, file not uploaded fully. Maybe I really don't know how they are handling it internally.
I think this means that if the post failed, it will not be passed to PHP after timeout. That's what I assume. I did not.
So it's okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is just one thing, and another thing is the more or less the same bugs were fixed on PHP 7.1. The next thing that we are going to comment is proposing a new cache key for streams operation. This means that PHP will be able to handle code that is probably being loaded from a far archive, and if the code is being loaded multiple times, the caching mechanism for the opcode cache will already be able to figure that it is the same far archive that is being loaded. Next, we are going to talk about isString, which is a proposal for having a sort of validation for converting serialized objects into new objects. So the isString would be a function that would allow to validate if a string really has a valid object of a certain class. Next, we have a discussion about type variants, like for instance, a class that receives a parameter of name of type rectangle. It would also be able to accept square as a variant of rectangle, because it would have a function named match that would just confirm that it would be really a square, but it would still be a rectangle. Next, we have a proposal here to have a variant of the range function that will act like a generator. Generator are those things that are a bit abstract to explain, but basically they return sequences of values that would allow you to treat those sequences as if they were arrays being iterated. Okay, we'll get back to this to explain it better during this podcast. But next, we are going to talk about the proposal of named parameters that somehow got on hold like a few years ago, having named parameters for functions, somehow similar to the Python language. Next, we are going to talk about a proposal, actually a discussion, because probably this is not going through, but it is to not needing to have a semicolon as to end commands more or less like JavaScript. It would treat end of lines of eventual end of command separator. Next, we're going to talk about the plans for releasing PHP 7.2 because the PHP 7.2 alpha is scheduled to happen around June. So they are already preparing to elect the people that will take care of this release because we are getting close. We're already only 2 months away of that date. Next, we are talking about a discussion about directory separators in paths of files and directories on Windows, because Windows also accepts the forward slash like in Linux. There is a discussion about this topic to handle it better. Finally, we'll have just comment on a couple of articles published on PHP classes site blog. One about using data mining and business intelligence methods to improve the visibility of PHP packages, PHP articles, projects in general, using basically search engine optimization techniques based on data mining and business intelligence to improve the visibility of these pages on Google, for instance. Finally, we just talk briefly about an article that will explain about OpenID Connect and the way to implement it with the OAuth 2 client. But it would also help to implement those so-called social login functionality that you see in many sites that allow you to log in a site without having to actually create an account, going through the whole process to register, just benefiting from accounts that you have, for instance, Facebook or Google or something else.